They sit across from you, their smile too sharp, their voice too smooth. They are talking, but their words are not words, they are probes. They are searching for cracks, for weaknesses, for tells that give away what you want to hide. This is what manipulators do, and this is why most people never see them coming. They think they are in a conversation, but in reality they are in a game. And unless you know the rules, you lose before you even realize you are playing. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that words are not for truth. They are for control. He knew that silence can be a weapon sharper than any sword, and that the man who listens more than he speaks always leaves with more than he came with. That is why today you will learn 12 Machiavellian tactics for reading enemies as if they were open books. Because once you can read them, you can control them. And once you can control them, they are no longer enemies. They are pawns. The first tactic is to notice what they over-explain. Weak people justify endlessly. They explain, repeat, circle back, and fill silence with excuses. They think that over-talking makes them look honest, but in truth it reveals their fear. A manipulator who tries too hard to sound clean is usually dirty. A rival who adds endless reasons why they are not against you almost always is. Words do not clear suspicion. They create it. When someone cannot stop explaining, Machiavelli would tell you they are confessing more than they realize. The second tactic is to measure their eyes against their words. A manipulator's face betrays the truth before their tongue does. When they praise you but their eyes dart away, when they swear loyalty but blink too fast, when they smile but their jaw tightens, the body reveals what the mouth conceals. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, and he was right. Watch carefully. You will see what they cannot hide. The third tactic is to leave silence after their statement. People who lie cannot sit with silence. They scramble to fill it. Ask a question, then pause. Do not nod. Do not speak. Do not save them. Watch what happens. They will talk too much. They will contradict themselves. They will betray their script. Silence is the simplest interrogation tool, and it never fails. A guilty mind burns in silence while an honest one remains still. The fourth tactic is to notice where they direct blame. The weak accuse others quickly. A manipulator cannot stop pointing outward, because pointing inward would expose their truth. Machiavelli said the deceiver never lacks victims, and he was right. The man who blames everyone is usually guilty of the very thing he accuses. This is projection, and it is the easiest crack to see. The fifth tactic is to test them with a small secret. Tell them something that sounds sensitive but is harmless. Then wait. If it spreads, you know who cannot hold loyalty. If it twists back to you, you know who plants poison. A Machiavellian strategist never tests people with big stakes first. He uses small traps to reveal big truths. Trust once broken is broken forever, and the smallest test will always show the largest weakness. The sixth tactic is to track how they react when you do not react. A manipulator thrives on reaction. They want you to flinch, defend, explain, rise to their bait. If you do not, if you stay cold, if you let their words echo unanswered, you will see their mask break. They will grow anxious. They will repeat themselves. They will become more dramatic. They will reveal what they wanted most because your stillness forces their hunger to surface. Machiavelli called this inversion. When you do nothing, the enemy does the work for you. The seventh tactic is to listen for contradictions across time. Manipulators forget what they said. They lie today, then forget it tomorrow, and in their hurry, they trip over their own tongue. Keep mental notes. Watch how their story shifts. When their past does not match their present, you have caught them without effort. Consistency is the ally of truth, but it is the enemy of lies. The eighth tactic is to feed them false information. Give them a detail you invented, something only they know, then wait. If it comes back twisted or spread, you have identified the leak. Machiavelli himself used this tactic in politics. He would let one advisor hear one plan, another advisor hear another, and whichever rumor returned revealed the traitor. Enemies betray themselves when you hand them the rope. The ninth tactic is to observe how they treat those beneath them. Manipulators flatter upward and abuse downward. Watch how they speak to the waiter, the assistant, the colleague with no power. That is the mirror of their true character. A man who disrespects the powerless will betray the powerful when the chance comes. Machiavelli taught that loyalty is fragile, and cruelty shows itself most clearly when it thinks no one important is watching. The 10th tactic is to ask them to repeat their story backward. A liar remembers the script forward but fails when you break the rhythm. Change the order. Ask details out of sequence. You will watch them stumble. Honest people may hesitate, but liars collapse. This is because their memory is not of truth but of invention, and invention does not hold when the flow is broken. The 11th tactic is to observe their micro-reactions to power words. Drop a phrase like betrayal, loyalty, weakness, or punishment in casual talk and watch their body. A subtle flinch, a flicker of the eyes, a twitch of the mouth. These are the cracks in their armor. The truth leaks in moments, not monologues. Machiavelli knew men reveal themselves in their smallest gestures, not their grand speeches. The 12th tactic is the most ruthless. Mirror their emotion back at them and see if they break. A manipulator often projects what they want you to feel. If they accuse you of anger, act calm. If they accuse you of calm, act amused. If they try to guilt you, act indifferent. They will stumble because their game fails when the target does not play along. Machiavelli would call this turning the blade. You never meet attack with defense, you let the attacker fall upon their own strike. These 12 tactics are not theories. They are weapons. Use them and you will see through masks. Use them and you will strip enemies of their illusions. Once you see through a manipulator, you own them. They cannot twist what you already understand. They cannot control what you already see. And the moment they realize you are reading them like an open book is the moment they stop being a threat and start being afraid. You begin to notice that once you see through them, enemies shrink. The powerful become small. The intimidating become transparent, and the manipulator's grip turns slippery. That is the Machiavellian lesson. Power is not in being louder, it is in being sharper. Reading people is not simply a defense, it is a weapon that lets you predict, redirect, and dismantle them before they ever strike. Let us go deeper into these strategies. It is not enough to know them in theory. You must see them in action, in scenes where real power shifts with a glance. Imagine a boardroom filled with polished executives. A rival across the table smiles too easily. He praises your proposal with an edge too smooth, as if he is planting doubt in the others. How do you read him? By watching his body, not his words. His eyes cut sideways when you speak, searching for support. His hand grips his pen too tightly, betraying tension. When he finishes his praise, leave silence. Let the silence stretch long enough to sting. He will speak again, this time less rehearsed, and in his over-talking you will see the cracks. Machiavelli would tell you that silence turns the strong into the desperate, and desperation reveals more than interrogation. Now imagine a different setting. A relationship. Your partner accuses you of not caring, their tone dripping with rehearsed hurt. Most people rush to defend themselves, to explain, to justify. You do not. You let the accusation float, you let it echo unanswered. The longer the pause, the more their certainty fades. They repeat themselves, louder, more dramatic, and suddenly the crowd watching, and friends, family, strangers, sees not a victim but a performance. You did not expose them. They exposed themselves. Machiavelli knew that when an enemy shouts too loudly, the crowd sees the desperation, not the truth. Consider a social gathering. Someone jabs, he always thinks he knows everything. Everyone waits for your reaction. If you defend, you look guilty. If you laugh nervously, you look weak. But if you hold stillness, if you let your gaze travel calmly across the room before returning to your glass, the jab collapses. Suddenly, it is the accuser who looks insecure, trying too hard to prove a point that no one respects. Machiavelli called this the art of framing. Whoever controls the response controls the story. By saying nothing, you force the room to see their words as pettiness. This is why reading people is not passive. It is active strategy. When you can read them, you can flip them. If someone is over-explaining, you know they fear suspicion. Use it. Ask them a simple question with a raised brow, then let them dig their own hole. If someone avoids eye contact while swearing loyalty, nod slowly and say nothing. The seed of doubt will eat at them more than any accusation. If someone tries to guilt you, invert it with calm detachment. That is how you see it. This phrase is neutral, but it slices deep. It makes them question their own tone, their own emotions, their own weakness. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. A leader must be both. Reading people is the fox's art. It is how you spot traps before you walk into them. It is how you smell betrayal before the knife appears. It is how you catch the whispers before they turn into campaigns. In politics, Machiavelli let advisors betray themselves by watching who carried rumors. In life, you can do the same. Give 3 people 3 different pieces of false information. Whichever one spreads is your traitor, and now you own them because they think they used you. but you are using them. Watch how people react when others are praised. A manipulator cannot stand someone else shining. Their smile tightens, their applause is too short, their compliment is faint. That is envy speaking louder than words. Machiavelli knew envy is more dangerous than hatred because it hides in smiles. Hatred declares itself. Envy waits silent, patient, ready to strike when you least expect it. There is also the tactic of patience. People who lie want fast resolution. They want to clear suspicion, close the case, end the doubt. You do not give them that gift. You let their words hang. You let days pass without assurance. You let the discomfort grow until they cannot contain it anymore. They will come to you again, repeating, defending, over-explaining, and every new explanation is another nail in their own coffin. Machiavelli would smile at this because the guilty man always reveals more than the interrogator asks. Consider also the online arena. Someone posts against you trying to bait you into a defense. The average person replies with a long explanation. You do not. You remain silent, or worse, you distort. You reply not to them but to the crowd. People always call you dangerous when they cannot control you. Now the attacker looks bitter while you look untouchable. Reading people online is about reading their need. They want your reaction. You deny it. You turn their desire into their exposure. Reading enemies is not about paranoia. It is about clarity. It is about stripping away illusions until you see the strings behind their actions. Once you see those strings, you can pull them. You can make them dance or you can cut them entirely. That is power. That is Machiavellian vision. Remember, people reveal themselves constantly, but most are too distracted to notice. They reveal themselves in how they justify, in how they blame, in how they sit with silence, in how they treat the powerless, in how they react to certain words, in how they contradict themselves. To read them is to own them, and the man who owns perception owns control. Machiavelli's laws are not abstract philosophy. They are the difference between being ruled and being the ruler. By now you understand that manipulators are not mysterious. They are predictable. Their tricks are tired, their moves are repetitive, and their masks are fragile. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you can use it. Every liar writes his own confession in the way he speaks, stands, shifts, and repeats. Every manipulator digs his own grave with the words he uses to cover it. And every enemy once read is already defeated. When you master the art of reading enemies, you no longer chase explanations. You no longer scramble for defense. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself. Instead, you sit in the center of the storm, calm while others expose themselves. Machiavelli would remind you that true strength is not in brute force but in perception. The man who sees clearly always defeats the man who only acts loudly. Let us imagine the court of a Renaissance prince. Advisors whisper in corners, each trying to secure influence. Some promise loyalty, others flatter with golden words. But the prince who listens for over-explanation, who watches the twitch of an eye, who plants small traps and sees which rumor returns, he already knows which advisor will betray him. He does not confront them openly. He smiles, he thanks them, he lets them believe they are safe. And then at the right moment he removes them quietly, surgically, without scandal. That is not luck. That is the art of reading people. And it works just as well today, whether in a palace or a modern office. Machiavelli's genius was in understanding that people are slaves to their own impulses. The liar cannot stop lying. The weak cannot stop justifying. The envious cannot stop twitching when others shine. And the manipulator cannot survive silence. To read enemies, you do not need magic. You need patience. You need observation. You need the courage to let silence expose them instead of rushing to fill it yourself. Think of how powerful this makes you. At a family dinner, when an insult is thrown your way, you do not bite. You wait. The accuser grows louder, and suddenly everyone sees them as petty. At work, when someone questions your ability, you do not explain. You let the question linger until they feel the need to soften it, revealing their own insecurity. In relationships, when someone tests you with guilt, you do not beg. You hold your ground with calm detachment, and they wonder if their own emotion is misplaced. Each time you choose not to react, you force the other side to reveal themselves. That is how you win without striking a blow. Machiavelli would say that appearances matter more than truth. When you read someone correctly, you control their appearance. You see what they hide and you expose it subtly. Not with accusations, but with silence, with calm, with timing. Soon the crowd begins to see them differently. They look weak, inconsistent, dishonest. And you look untouchable. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you read the room the sharpest. The real mastery comes when you stop seeing enemies as threats and start seeing them as resources. Once you can read them, you can predict them. Once you can predict them, you can use them. The man who lies to you today can be bait tomorrow. The colleague who spreads false confidence can be exposed at the perfect moment to elevate your own position. The manipulator who thrives on reaction can be dismantled in front of an audience by denying him the very reaction he needs. Every weakness you read becomes a weapon in your hand. Machiavelli's laws were never about kindness. They were about clarity. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, deceivers, and while they pretend loyalty, they are driven by their own need. This is not pessimism. It is realism. And once you embrace it, you stop being surprised by betrayal. You start expecting it, preparing for it, shaping it. Betrayal is no longer a shock. It is a tool you saw coming, one you can turn to your advantage. There is a reason silence feels so heavy in a room. It is because most people cannot bear to be seen without filling the air with explanations. But when you hold silence, when you let others stew in it, they collapse. They start speaking again, trying to fill the void, and in doing so they show you everything you wanted to know. That is not coincidence. That is a tactic. The greatest leaders, the most dangerous operators, the people who rise above their peers, they all share this Machiavellian gift. They can read the truth behind masks. They can see fear in the smile, insecurity in the boast, guilt in the explanation, envy in the applause. And once they see it, they act not with emotion, but with precision. They wait, they plan, they strike only when the enemy has already destroyed themselves. Understand this. Power does not come from being loved. It does not come from being understood. It does not even come from being feared directly. It comes from being unreadable yourself while reading everyone else. When you are unreadable, enemies cannot plan against you. When you can read them, you can plan everything against them. That is the dual shield and sword Machiavelli carried, and it is the one you must sharpen for yourself. So the next time someone flatters you too much, ask yourself what they want. The next time someone over-explains, ask yourself what they are hiding. The next time someone blames too quickly, ask yourself what guilt lies behind it. The next time someone panics in silence, ask yourself what truth they fear will emerge. These are not random moments. They are patterns. Patterns you can learn to see. Patterns you can learn to use. When you read enemies as open books, the world becomes predictable. Betrayal is no longer surprise, it is schedule. Lies are no longer confusing, they are signals. Manipulation is no longer dangerous, it is transparent. And once you hold that clarity, you no longer live in reaction, you live in command. Machiavelli would tell you this: it is better to be feared than loved, but it is best of all to be the one who reads and never needs to be read. That is where true power lives. That is how you remain untouchable.